All right. So moving on to an earlier topic that Balls brought up. As you may know, September 11th is a few days away. So this is the 20th year anniversary of the Twin Towers falling.
You
Sorry.
almost had it, actually. You
Oh,
almost gave it
wow.
respect.
I was.
And
It's been 20 years already. It seems.
it
Yeah,
has
yep.
been
Next
20
Saturday.
years.
2001.
So one, as I was, trying to like do a little research, I just found out that a few hours ago, New York City identified two more 9/11 victims ahead of the anniversary. It's the first new identifications of the World Trade Center victims since 2019, and it was confirmed through DNA testing from 2001, 2002, and 2006.
Wow.
As in,
Oh,
they
I mean, like,
bought
is it?
before.
Does it sound super convenient? It just seems wow.
I
Like,
mean, it's
who would have
good
thought? Like,
timing.
right then when it's yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
you would have thought like right away we would have had these names, but I guess not.
I think
What
that they do
happened?
ramp up testing as we get closer to an anniversary, which is probably hoping
But
for good news like that. Not that that's good
20
news that
years
people are dead,
later,
but,
they
you know.
are.
20
What
years
are they
later.
testing?
They're
that
still
makes them know
they're still
dead?
finding.
Well, no, so they found these in 2001, 2002, and 2006. So they uncovered these,
Wow.
they've hung on to them, I guess.
They
for-
just didn't know who they were, and now
Yeah,
they've
they didn't
been
know
Right.
what DNA
identified.
belonged to.
As of today, there are 40% of those who remain identified, which is about 1,000 and some change.
40%. Jeez.
Who remain unidentified, you said? Yeah.
Right under.
That's
many.
wow. I didn't realize it was that many.
20
I didn't
years
realize
later, we still don't know.
And the list was so long that I didn't.
It's almost 3,000.
Every
Right.
year they would read off all the names. I think that
2996
They do
or
every
something
year,
like that.
yeah.
But
a bunch of
so
names weren't
are
said.
those names added onto the list?
They're
Or
already on it. They know
They're
these
already
people
on
are
it?
dead. They just haven't
They just-
identified people.
It's the people
Yeah.
that work there that they no longer that are missing.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's also a thing where
Dude.
it's like these pieces, what they're identifying, they're not bodies. They're
This piece
a
of
fingernail, a
Dust.
hair, a piece of them. So it's not
Ash,
even.
something.
Yeah, it could be.
I wouldn't
You're like
say.
hoping
I was-
that the rest.
I was
of-
gonna
Well, I
I don't
don't
know
know.
about Ash. Yeah.
I was gonna ask if they, I mean, obviously since it's that small, they probably wouldn't give it to the families or anything since they don't really have anything to.
They have, from what I understand. Like I remember back 20 years ago, and 19 years ago, and even 18. So there'd be whole caskets with just a hand or a couple of pieces or whatnot. A closed casket, obviously.
Yeah,
But they do tend to give back to the families if they want.
just to have maybe I sometimes it does help with people getting closure as far as having a service or doing something
Yeah.
to close that chapter and stuff.
Yeah. Where was everybody? Like, Balls is one of the reasons I was like, oh, I need that Balls here because his stories, like we communicated on that day, we're kind of tied into each other. But where were all of you? Because you guys are significantly younger than Balls and I. So
I was being born.
I was in Rochester at the time. It was middle school for me. It was also freshman Friday, so I was trying not to die in the hallway. No, seriously. Like one of my friends actually broke his arm in the process of trying to avoid all the fights, and like I lost him in the crowd. And
at the pool on the roof.
the teachers were trying to keep us out of the classrooms, and I ended up diving underneath one of the teacher's skirts just to get in the doorway. And then we just see everyone in the room just kind of like stopped, like in front of the TV, just like watching everything happening.
So you crawled out from under the skirt and looked at the TV.
I
Yeah, I just went,
Jeez.
I was at Chamber Street. I went to Mary Bertram, which is by First Police Plaza. So I saw the first one on fire. And when I got out of the train, everyone's like looking that direction. I'm kind of walking in the opposite direction. So I turned around and we all see it. Me and my school friends. And I thought like, oh, it's a big building, it's probably an electrical fire because I didn't know what was going on at the time. And it was like I will always remember the moment because it was so surreal. It's not like a movie. It's just something so different when you could see the explosion of the second building tower and it's quiet for a second though you can visually see it And then you hear the sound like a couple seconds later, and everyone was quiet until the rush of heat hits you from the explosion. And that's when mayhem completely started.
So you
Some
saw
lady,
the second plane go into the second tower,
I was on the other side of the building.
but it coming through.
So I just saw the explosion. I didn't see the plane coming towards the building.
Wow.
So then a lady would like, she dropped her floor. She said it was like the end of the world. My health teacher, she ran past me as everybody was running. And that was
She
the
left you
first time I
there?
ever, yeah, that was, she told us to run, but she just like ran past us and said, you like run, get out of here. It's terrorist. And I didn't know that word. I didn't know what that word meant at the time. So I actually had a friend, I was in shock because so many people were running towards us that it was very much that like Lion King, Simba, in the, that it was coming at us and I didn't know what to do. And so he just like carried me and we just ran and we couldn't go back in the train station because they closed off that train station. So we had to walk all the way to Essex and Delancey. That's like, I saw the smoke, I saw the papers, and then you would see like heavier stuff falling out of the building. And it took me a while before I realized that there were bodies that were falling out.
We probably passed each other.
It was, yeah, I had to like I have to walk over the Williamsburg Bridge because they were saying that they were afraid that something was going to happen on the bridge. So, crazy.
Darius?
I was in middle school. I was in 8th grade. And we were doing, I just remember being in first period and like first period almost ending. And where we were, I said I was in Bushwick, but we could like look out the window and we could see the towers from our classroom. And I looked out the window and we could just see smoke coming from the first tower. We had no idea what was going on. And then I remember our principal announcing something about towers being hit over the loudspeaker. And then like the rest of the day is a blur, except for like third period, because in third period, I think that's when they fell. All you could see was just the smoke and the ash and everything. But the rest of the day is a blur because my mother worked not too far from the towers. And I just remember being concerned for her the entire day. I didn't have a cell phone at the time, but obviously cell phones weren't even working that day. But she tells the story that, she was in the building and she's close enough that when the second plane hit, like she can feel it in her building. And for whatever reason, the lunatic manager is like, oh, just everybody stay calm, just stay where you are, stay seated. And, she just hears this voice in her head say, run. And she ignores it the first time. Then she hears it a little bit louder, like, run. And again, she just stays where she is. And then it's like a third time, she hears it really loud and it like so loud it shakes her. She's like, run. And so she gets up, she takes her stuff and she leaves. And I think she was at the Brooklyn Bridge or like halfway across the Brooklyn Bridge by the time the towers fell. So she didn't get covered in all that ash and everything like that. She had to walk across the Brooklyn Bridge to not Fort Greene, Clinton Hill to get the car and then drive to get us from junior high school. So I just remember like that was the end of the day, but I don't remember what happened between third period and when she picked me up. I was just so happy that she picked me up because I just knew how close she was. So that was like the sigh of relief that I needed. That it was a crazy day, and I just remember being filled with dread, just praying that my mother made it out all right.
I will say while I went through that, I didn't know what was going on. So I didn't have any emotions until I turned on the news and realized what was really like the gravity of everything. And that's when I cried because I realized I was in a really dangerous situation.
What grade were you in?
It was like my first week of high school.
Yeah.
And then
middle school.
they closed everything down and like school, I couldn't go there. And then like 2 weeks later, they opened it back up again and we could go back. And I just remember the smell.
Mm-hmm.
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 The smell was like something I've never smelled before.
I had something similar to Darius, like being in Rochester. I didn't really know the city that well. And I had no clue where my dad was or like where my grandmother was in comparison to like where the buildings were falling. So for a long period after I got home, like we were like rewatching everything on the news and I just kept calling him and calling him and calling him. And I think we finally got through like around like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And, come to find out, my dad was in Brooklyn working, and my grandmother actually got to see it from her window because she lives like around Delancey. So she saw them fall.
Yeah. Scary.
For me, I was older, so I was working already, and I worked at this flower shop on Hudson and Leonard Street, and so usually I would just take the 2 from the Bronx down to 14th and then take the local 1 train to like it's the stop up Franklin from Chambers. But I used to stand. It's the old Redbird train, so I used to stand in the very back car and just look out the window because you don't get a seat by the time you got to my stop. And then somewhere around like 50th Street, 59th Street, all the ones are backed up, backed up, backed up. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to Chambers and then go Uptown 1. So I get to Chambers, and I remember seeing the towers when there's this turn between East 180th Street and West Farm Square on the 2-5 line of the Bronx, where you can see the city in full like panoramic. Just looked at it, whatever. Get on, and I get to Chambers and I hear like no train, and it's like you think, okay, MTA, whatever, something stupid is happening. Get on the 1 train, and right behind me is this man holding his son's hand tight, and they're white as a ghost. And people say New Yorkers don't check up on each other, but they do, because a few people on the train were like, "Sir, are you and your son okay?" And we're pulling into the next station because it's 1 stop, and he goes, "No, I was just in Battery Park, and I saw a plane hit the World Trade Center," and the car went silent. There's maybe like 10, 15 people. Doors open. The second explosion that you were describing, Tati, it was the second plane hitting. So then you can't see the World Trade Center from Franklin Street Station. So I run down to the flower shop and I look up, and that's when I see it. And I didn't know what that second explosion was. I thought from that view, I thought maybe, I don't know, a wing I heard the plane had hit it. Obviously, I thought maybe one ricocheted off and like hit the second one because I just saw that little impact, which is what you saw, Tater. And then we just watched, and all the sirens and whatnot. And I remember calling you, Balls, and you had just woken up, correct, or something like that.
My brother called me, and we had a corded phone, so I had to walk down the hallway to answer the phone. But I let the phone ring. The phone rang 4 times. Answer machine picked up. Hang up. The person hung up and then called again, which is usually the sound, the notice that it's important. So I got up, and my brother, in his infinite wisdom, said to me, my brother's 5 years older than me. He's working in a corporate office of a bank, and he's just like, "Hi, hey, what's mom's number?" So I give him my mom's school number. She's in a school in the Bronx, and he's like, "Okay." I hang up. Doesn't tell me shit. I lay back down, and then the phone rings again, and I'm like, "What?" And it's Shane, and he's like, "Dude, they flew planes into the World Trade Center." And I said, "Like what? Like a prop plane that accidentally missed?" And he's like, "No, no, 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 no." And he said, like they're attacking us. And I'm like, "How did they get like fighter jets into our airspace?" And then he's like, "They took control of commercial airlines." And I'm like,
I gotta
"Oh
remember this
shit."
part.
Like I was like, "Wow, I didn't think of that." And then he's like, "Put the TV on," and every channel didn't work except, I don't know if it was ABC or Fox. One of them was the only one working, and it was just crazy, and I couldn't believe it.
And I forget. I know I called my mother's best friend, who's like my second mother, Kika. I forget if I was on the phone with you or her, but I didn't see the second tower fall, which is the first one to fall. I just remember being on the phone with someone, and then the ground shaking. And at that time, there's people are in the streets with their telephoto lenses. I actually had a camera because we used to cater to a lot of famous people, so I had pictures that I don't have anymore with like a regular wind up camera. And I just remember like 5,000 voices screaming in horror at once. I guess it wasn't you, Dave.
I don't
guess
think it was me.
Then it was Keek, and I was like, something just happened. I gotta go. Hang up the phone, run to the front. I go, what happened? And this old woman worker goes, it's gone. And I just see the first tower, and then you start seeing it swaying back and forth, back and forth. And I counted, I'd say, at least 35, 40 people who jumped. And they just started becoming more and more. First, you could see people regretting it. Then you saw people holding hands, jumping, because it was better than burning. And it's, you know, it's like if, God forbid, any of us were in that situation, we'd probably hug each other and go together as a family, because what other choice do you have? And it just, in the videos, it's hard to sometimes tell, but, you know, things look different in person. You could tell if they were black or white. You could tell if it was male or female. You could tell some people kind of had fun with it. They did barrel rolls because I guess they were just taking the last moment of joy that they could get. And others, you could tell, were just panicking. And then I remember it was person, one person, and then it fell. Almost like it followed them down. And almost immediately after the second tower fell, and we were listening to 10 Winds, so we heard about the Pentagon. We heard there were 5-10 more planes on their way. Almost immediately, I guess, National Guard, people covered head to toe, camouflage, masks, rifles. You couldn't tell what they were ethnicity wise because they were head to toe covered, and they just said walk north and avoid all major landmarks. Don't go near the Empire State Building, Grand Central Station, anything, Times Square, because there's more planes coming. And so we walked, and I walked to the Bronx, and listening to my little Discman radio, listening to 10 Winds, and finally got a train when I got over the Third Avenue Bridge and walked to Jackson Avenue in the Bronx, and was able to go see my ex at the time. She was working in school, and I couldn't get a hold of her because phones are down. But yeah, it was, and then having to go back down to work there for the next. I didn't go back for a week, and then worked the next 3 weeks down there, and the smell, like you were saying, it was.
Yeah, I'll never forget that smell.
Because it's rotting.
Something I'd never.
Yeah,
Yeah,
burnt flesh.
It's not just the building; it's flesh. And I ended up getting bronchial pneumonia and quit the job because of it. Because I was like, that was my first experience in life of wearing a mask while working.
Yeah.
And it was awful.
That evening was very eerily silent. We waited. My mom calls me to tell me now, what happened. She's like, don't leave the house. Don't go to Christina's house. My wife now, because that's going to make a difference, whatever it is. So I'm more mad at my brother for not telling me, but anyway, so I'm watching the whole thing on TV, and whatever. My mom ends up coming home. My dad worked in White Plains with my brother, not in the same building, but they worked in the same area.
He wasn't still at the Paramount building on 15th?
No, I don't think he was down there. I'm pretty sure he wasn't down there.
Did he work at the Paramount? I used to work at the Paramount building.
Across the street from the Cats Theater? Or used to be the Winter Garden Theater? No?
Probably would have been
building.
Mamma Mia
Yeah,
at the time for her.
like across the street,
Yeah.
next to the Hard Rock, 42nd-ish. They said it was the Paramount building.
59th Street, right? Was it
They may
59th
have
Street?
changed locations on the building probably, I think, when the new building.
Oh, for me, it was the original Paramount.
She's calling you old balls. She's calling
Whatever.
you old.
I thought that was like maybe I.
Shane
know these
remembers the name of the
people.
building more than I do.
I got excited.
But
Need some good news.
But I remember Derek calling me. I don't know
Mm.
why Derek called my house, and I guess he just wanted to see where I was. And ironically, I had that day off of school. I was going to Mercy, just local school in the Bronx, and I had off on Tuesdays because it was Tuesday. And he called me up, and he's asking me, what's going on. I both of the towers were still up at the time, and he told me he works customs, so he was down there, and I'm like, dude, get the fuck out of there, literally, just leave. And then he said he walked uptown when he saw the second plane just go over his head towards that direction, and he said he didn't turn around, he kept walking, but he ended up going to John Jay. I'm like, go fucking home, get out of the city. But whatever. So that evening, I'm on the corner of Morris Park and Williamsbridge Road, waiting for the express bus for Christina's mom to come home, because Christina's mom was down. She was Midtown, so but every single bus going uptown was full, every single one. and she waited and waited and waited. And after waiting, I think 2 hours, she decided to walk downtown, which I felt was crazy. But her thinking was everyone's getting on from downtown. So I
Mhm.
got it because I'm never gonna find a bus. And she's like, my ankle's gonna ain't gonna let me make it all the way uptown. So she ended up getting one downtown, and then she didn't get home till really really late. So we're sitting there waiting, and like I said, that the streets were empty and it was so quiet, and you could see this haze in the air, like this, like the smoke. And I feel like maybe a day later or 2 days later, I felt like we went up on the roof of our building to see. No, maybe not, Tonto.
I think we did. Yeah.
Yeah, to
Yeah, we
see
did.
that you
Yeah,
could
we
see
did.
the smoke.
We did. I
You
forgot
could
about
see
that
it
to
still
just now.
smoldering.
I also
But
forgot.
yeah,
I said goodbye to you because I remember when we thought, because we were in the thick of it. Like, it seems silly now to be like, oh, how, you were half a mile away. How could you think you were gonna die? But
you
like,
don't know.
you listen to 10 Wins and you listen to the people on the street. It's like, shit, more's coming. And I said
Yeah.
to you, I said, if I don't make it out of this, I love you. Like, and you're like,
I
bro,
don't
you're gonna be
remember
fine. I just remembered that, but yeah, it was.
Oh, I wish I said something good like that. I was just willing to go out like that, like just I didn't know what the hell is going
Yeah.
on. I mean, even in people's fear, it's interesting because you can't hold it against them for being so scared. But
Yeah.
I even remember trying to get into the train station once we get like towards Essex and Delancey, and people were going to push me out after using my student metro card because they needed to get out. They were so afraid they wanted to get out. While I'm trying to get in so I can get closer to Brooklyn because I didn't know how to get home. And yeah, and then next, we're all crammed into this like freaking train, and then they say something like, there might be suspicion of like there might be bombs on the train, and so we ended up like walking it or some crap. It was a lot.
The relief you must have felt just getting home must have been.
Yeah.
That's the thing though. I just
Scared of
didn't
home getting
understand
blown
what
up,
was
too.
going on. I didn't know what was going on. So like once I turned on the TV and like my parents called me and they knew I was home, then I felt emotional. Like the whole time I was just like, what the fuck is going on?
Do you think maybe that not knowing was a benefit to you going through it?
Maybe. I was just so shocked that I just couldn't make odds, heads or tails of what was going on. It was just crazy to me, you know? So I don't know if it would have helped me. I don't think I was calmer because I didn't know.
Okay.
You know? So
I know one of our friends we used to live with in the building, Derek, other Derek, who was a cop at Special Forces. He was there. He drove down there, and they sent him up to the roof of the Marriott to look for people trying to get out, and he got out right before Tower 2 came down and crushed the Marriott. And he was like, just pieces, human pieces. There was no one, and I remember just seeing people covered in blood and soot who were like in shell shock as we walked north, and it was just people were trying to help them, but they were like they just needed to get home. It was terrifying. It was sad.
yeah.
I had a friend that I LARPed with. He actually helped create a lot of it, and anyway, he lived in Pennsylvania. He lived in the Poconos, and he would take the bus into the city. And he worked at the World Trade Center. He didn't work in the Twin Towers, but he worked at one of the other buildings. And his wife, we were on a Yahoo message board, chatting back and forth with all the people at Nero. And yep, Yahoo message board. And
At first it was the
like-
cord phone, now Yahoo.
she's like, I keep
It could have been worse. It could have been AOL.
Yep. I did have AIM then too. But anyway, she was telling me that she couldn't get through to any of the hospitals. And I didn't know that anybody outside of the area code 212 couldn't get in to the city trying to dial. So here it is. I looked up the nearest hospitals in the area and I called asking if they had a John Finnegan. And all of them said no. And I told her, and then I told her I'll call back in an hour. And I called back, and it's so weird because you almost want it's gonna sound bad, but you almost want to hear that they have him in there. Then the other thought is you almost want to hear that they don't have him in there.
Yeah.
You know, he ends up walking to Dumbo over the Brooklyn Bridge to visit a fellow LARPer and friend who ironically lives like 10 blocks from my house now. But yeah, that was a very scary moment for, you know, his wife, and hear him trying to reach out to her in Pennsylvania, and you know, he ends up luckily dialing out to his house, and she tells him, and they ended up taking a cab from Dumbo to the Poconos. Yeah.
That was a happy cab driver.
Oh yeah, that guy got tipped handsomely. But yeah, so
Next-
I mean,
Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry about that. Bex, were you?
I don't know. 9/11's definitely like sore spot for sure. Like I don't have anything that I could say like actually impacted me specifically, but I remember being in school. I was in middle school, so I wasn't like a cool high schooler roaming the streets. And I was in the Bronx, and I just remember them corralling us all into the auditorium, making us sit down, and then the teachers were like doing their no nonsense shit as usual. Started talking about everything, and they like brought up a TV that they rolled out and were like playing the news. And it's not like I knew what the Twin Towers were then, or like it had registered, but then I just like saw some kids go like, "That's where my mom works," and they like, started bawling, and
mm,
it was just like sad, and you just like had to sit and wait for your parents to come get you, and everyone's like freaking out, and you'd see like you were waiting a long time to get out of there, and you'd see other kids like the kids who said like, "My mom works there," like just sitting there waiting, and like you don't know what happened. I remember just it being very upsetting to see everything on TV. My little brother being like 2 years old, too young to understand what was going on, and I guess we were trying to traumatize him, like understand what can happen or something. I don't know, it wasn't smart. Um, and we lived by the water kind of, so over the next few weeks, across the water where we used to go to see the fireworks, you could still see it steaming like hardcore volcano like shit for like 2 3 weeks. Like you thought it would have stopped by then, because like on TV you were seeing people give cookies to firemen, and like stuff seemed to be getting better, but like it was still steaming. And just hearing about all the firemen always broke my heart, because it's like number one thing I love and adore is firemen. Like who could be more selfless than a fireman or woman or whatever? But yeah, it was just yeah, like it was super sad. And I just remember like how mean people were to people that they thought were terrorists all of a sudden. Like everybody that was Indian all of a sudden was clumped into this, which I thought was ridiculous. And you feel that shift as a kid. And I think my most vivid memory was a couple days later, just trying to go to like a store or something with my mom, and hearing like a really loud like whoosh noise and freaking the fuck out and cowering. It was like fighter jets that were flying really low, like zooming all throughout the city. And that freaked me the fuck out. Like I thought I'm like 11, 12 years old thinking like, holy shit, terrorist planes, here it comes. And I don't remember ever feeling scared or like something horrible was going to happen until like that moment in life.
Mm.
I remember hearing those jets that day flying overhead.
It scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Like I was like in the middle of like opening a car door, and like I just remember like just dropping to the floor and like acting crazy.
Like a couple weeks later, maybe, I mean, I don't know, maybe a month later, I don't know. I don't know the exact time frame. I just know that one day I was outside and I saw a maintenance worker. I grew up in the projects. Shane was in this, and I were in the same building, and I seen two guys walk out of the building with a door, and I recognized that door. It was the door to the roof. And you know, I'm not gonna lie, they had a certain headgear on, and I saw the maintenance worker, and I'm like, "Are you supposed to be walking out there with that?" And here I'm like, so it's 2001. I'm 20, September 2001. So if it was October, I might have been 21, and I'm 20. And the guy's like, "Yeah," and I was like, "It's just a weird thing to see." Literally right after that, and I don't know, I just like freaked out because I was like, "Why are they taking the door off the roof?" But apparently the door was busted, probably from
Sure.
stupid shit that we did.
They were
Right, Shane?
fixing. They were
They
fixing,
were fixing
the
it.
door.
Yeah, they were doing good. I mean, that
They
time
were
changed
actually
it.
doing their job.
Yes.
That time changed it for many people. It made it,
Yeah.
in when you look at it today, you realize like, oh god, that's terrible.
Yeah,
Like,
that's pretty bad.
You're profiling. I the
100%.
flights.
How anyone
the
coming
flights I
off
would
your
take-
roof with a door is
Yeah.
somebody. That's
Well,
what
yeah.
you're
100%.
doing.
But it's like it's extra when you're like, oh, they have, but like I remember just planes for years. I hadn't yet flown. I flew for the first time the following year, but like planes, I would always look around and see kind of thing, like who looks like what, and it's horrible to say, and it's horrible, and that's and now I wouldn't do that. Seeing September 11th through the eyes that I have now of understanding history and the world and having 20 years removed from it, but it reinforced a lot of
Yeah.
things that
My older sister, she dealt with she had severe anxiety afterwards, like being on the train going over bridges. If she would see someone that she was profiling or anything like that, she had a hard time getting back to normal. I have to say that I'm glad that I was able to see it with open eyes, to know that like I didn't necessarily get that way with people that looked like that or something. Because I wasn't exactly sure when it happened what was going on, and because I took it as it was someone from another country, and then you heard all the horrible things that were happening to people because they were being prejudged and things like that.
Or if you just like look at the people in the crowds running away from that, I'm sure that it being New York City, it's a very mixed bag. I just
Yeah.
remember being very upset as a kid because kids that were like Arabic or Indian or anything, they were just all lumped together all of a sudden, and everyone was pretending that they were the enemy. And I was just really confused because I thought of it kind of the same way. I was like, the people weren't from America.
Yeah, they attacked us and they were here too. So it's like,
Yeah.
But then you get the campaign, see something, say something, and then everyone's trying to say something, and it's
Yeah.
horrible because it's
They're
making
seeing what they think they see.
Yep.
And
we've
it's
talked
making
about divide and conquer on this show plenty.
things
and,
for a scared
you know,
community or whatever.
because
there's
they
like
use
no
it to
good
their
way to
go
advantage,
about
too.
it.
The surveillance.
Yeah.
laws.
now, to be
Because-
honest, with the whole COVID thing and everybody hating the Asians for a little bit, like
Still
we-
hating them for it. Yeah, it's
people being afraid of what they don't really understand.
It's yeah,
Ah.
it's super sad.
I think unfortunately, I think it's easy. That's the same thing that you were saying about lumping people together that aren't always, yeah, they may look the same or they might have some situations that may seem like it might be similar, but it's not the same thing. It's not the same person. And I think
Yeah.
it's easier to sell a perfect cookie cutter thing. So instead of, graying up the area and muddying up with like, there's someone that is similar to this, but not exactly like this. People just say like, fuck all of them. And that's what tends to happen.
I know.
Yeah, it's weird.
I still kind of
Mhm.
did it now. Like I was telling you when I was regaling you with my tale of the train for Amtrak cross country. That dude who that crazy white guy in camouflage with his bags going around, stay fuck away from me, motherfucker. I'm like
He probably killed somebody by now.
he could be a mass shooter kind of thing. It's like, but at least he gave me reason to suspect him because of his behavior. Not just because he fits the physical profile, whereas back then I succumbed to the,
I think we all have at some point.
yeah, maybe not everyone.
I think
but-
with that, I was just really confused because I lived by Parkchester, and in Parkchester there's like a ton of Indian people, and I was just like, I don't get how these people are I couldn't connect the dots. I had such a diverse background, and I didn't understand shit about their culture or anything, but I was like, it's Indian food. Like, what's bad about that? Like, it just didn't.
What happens the
didn't
next
connect.
morning is what's bad about Indian food.
you rate the person based on the kitchen. It's like, you're a good person. You cook really well.
On how bad you feel in the morning.
Bad people
it's
don't
really
know how to
not.
cook well.
You would just see people screaming at people that were like kind of like light brown and stuff in the street and calling.
I
them
do remember though that there was
terrorists,
that
go
like
back to the country. I didn't like it.
there was like that controversy where some of them were like in the streets like parading during the day.
Ended up not
And-
being true.
No.
That wasn't even true. Oh my!
There was a
goodness,
video.
it's
The video
horrible.
that everybody thinks they saw was for a celebration for something else.
Yeah.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
the
You see, like,
Mandela effect. What is it called? Is that what it
Mandela
is?
effect. Shazam, Kazam.
I
Mandela
remember
Sinbad.
that.
Berenstein Bears. It's Berenstein Bears.
I have cross dimensions many times.
Some people have
Berenstein
access.
Berenstein Bears. I remember it being
Steen.
Berenstein Bears.
Ooh,
But anyway,
that should be a segment next week
Berenstein
I think
Bears?
we've had that episode.
about the Mandela effect.
We might have had
Oh.
a conversation before.
You may have had that conversation.
Wait, we
Oh,
were
you know what?
I think we
Maybe
were
I
talking about
Listen,
Shazam.
That's your
That's
the
Mandela,
Mandela
effect.
effect.
Yeah.
That is,
Think
I
it's
thought we had the conversation, but it turns out it never
Maybe
happened.
next week we'll have that conversation.
Oh,
But to
We're
wrap
talking-
this up, I
We'll
guess.
talk about Selena too.
good job, Ashley.
Yeah.
Really-
To wrap this up, though, unless anyone has anything to say, we just,
No.
20 years doesn't change the pain of
It
those
hasn't
who
changed,
lost.
things, and we certainly have not forgotten.
No.
And our hearts go out to the people who have
Yes.
suffered and died since then because of that and
Their families.
questionable actions that surround it. from
And I
all
do
sides.
hope that at some point we, those people, that 40%, we're able to identify and that we finally get closure at some point.